Is it the pleasure of the committee to take into consideration Bill number 46, an act to amend the Right to Information and Protection of Privacy Act? All those in favor, please say yea. Yea. All those against, please say nay. Carried. Welcome to the Minister of Government Services and his staff. And if you have any opening remarks, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. On May the 28th, I introduced a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Right of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. I'm pleased to answer any questions regarding this bill this morning, and I'm pleased to have my very capable staff, Judy Ross, on my right, and Leanne McFarland, both of Government Services, who is sitting behind me. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
All right, alors nous allons ouvrir le plancher pour les questions et les commentaires. Et ce sera à ce moment-ci le député de Fredericton West, Henwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we did get to hear the Minister speak in second reading on this bill, but I'm wondering if you could just refresh our memory as to what exactly he sees the rationale for introducing this bill.
Yes, to the member opposite. This bill originally was brought in this Right to Information bill was originally brought in, I think it was 2010?
Yes.
Yeah. 2000, to the member opposite, was brought in 2010, and under the officers of the Legislative Assembly, an error was made in which it was the bill forgot to include the official languages commissioner. So this is really housekeeping to make sure that the Office of the Official Languages is included as an officer of the Legislative Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I understand that this particular bill that we're dealing with today, Bill 46, the intent is to exempt the Commissioner of Official Languages from the Right to Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And as the Minister has pointed out, there's a number of legislative officers. In fact, all of the other legislative officers are already exempt from this Act. But I'm wondering if the Minister could clarify for us the rationale that those legislative officers are exempt from the Act. So my question is, why is anyone exempt from the Act?
Member opposite, thank you very much for the question. At the time the Act was written, the government chose to exempt them due to the confidential information that these officers might have. And I might expand a little bit on that for you if you would like. Information such as court record, the record of a judge, judicial administration records, or a record relating to support services provided to the judge, a record pertaining to legal affairs that relate to the performance of duties and functions of the Office of the Auditor General, a note made or by or for communications regarding a judicial or query judicial capacity in their capacity, a record of a member of the Legislative Assembly who is not a Minister of the Crown, a personal or constituency, a record of a Minister of the Crown, a record made by or for an officer of the Legislative Assembly, a record made by or for an elected official of a local public body related to constituency matters, teaching materials of an employee of an educational institute or other research information of an employee of an educational institute, information the release of which was prohibited under the Securities Act of Canada, a record of care, custody or control of provincial archives, and a record of care, custody, and control of archives of a public body placed in archives for a person or agency other than the public body.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. A bit of an exhaustive list, and not being a lawyer, it's difficult for me at first reading to understand the depth of that. But as the Minister was going through that, I noticed that a number of those pertain to matters that would already be excluded for other reasons. So, for example, I think judicial proceedings are already protected by solicitor-client privilege, that matters within a constituency would be protected for the constituents' privacy benefits. So I'm just wondering if there's anything in that list that isn't already covered by another piece of legislation that would protect it. So what I'm trying to discover is this this level of protection really necessary, or are all the items on that list, or most of them, already protected in another way?
To the member opposite, thank you very much for asking the question. The reason we're correcting the legislation is that a record made by or for an officer of the Legislative Assembly, and the officers of the Legislative Assembly were previously listed, they were not protected. This particular officer was not protected under the old legislation due to the error of omission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the reason I'm asking these questions is it cuts to sort of the core of the argument that I made on second reading, which the minister was here to enjoy, and that is, my concern is that we've seen increasing levels of a government that says one thing and does another, and in this case, in particular, reference to transparency, and it's been my concern that this government, although claiming to be transparent, in fact, in my limited experience here, hasn't been transparent. And examples of that are, just simple disclosure and question period. It takes a long time to get to some pretty basic facts. And so all that's well and good. That pertains to the government. This pertains to a specific legislative officer, this bill. But my concern is that we're just putting in more layers of what I would consider obfuscation, or layers where we can't penetrate to get to the truth. And it's my concern as a legislator that it's important that we come here and are able to discover the truth for our constituents, particularly truths about how the government's money is being spent. So I guess I'll just throw that onto the minister. That's quite a lot. He knows that it's a little bit partisan, but I'm sure he can respond in a nonpartisan way and explain exactly why this piece of legislation. I know it's a housekeeping thing. I justify that, but my concern is this act going to provide another layer of obfuscation so that it's more difficult for legislators to get to the truth of the matter?
To the member opposite, and thank you very much for your question. The question was really, are we creating layers of non-penetration so it's difficult as legislators to, in fact, penetrate the layers of government bureaucracy to get the required information? And I think that was the nature of your question. But no, it's the status quo. We're not changing any of the principles of the Right to Information and Privacy Act, only adding the officer who was left out in the original legislation. So there's absolutely no change in any of the principles of the Right to Information and Privacy Act.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I guess the argument I'm trying to make would be that I would actually like to see us going in the other direction and remove the exclusions for these officers. That might provide more transparency, but I don't think that's the intent of this act, and I don't think this minister plans to go in that direction. So I won't belabor that point. But I am just curious. So since the original act came into force, and the Commissioner of Official Languages was excluded from that act, do we have some kind of indication as to how many inquiries have been made to the Official Languages Commissioner? So I guess what I'm trying to get to is the Language Commissioner is not included now, not excluded. They are included in the Act. They're not excluded from the Act, as this bill seeks to do. And it's a little bit difficult to explain because it is a double negative. But the point is, now, since the Official Languages Commissioner now stands outside of this Act, since the Act came into force, how many kind of requests have been made to the Official Languages Commissioner? Do we have a sense of that? So I guess the case is, if the Language Commissioner had been included in the first place, how many concerns would not have come forward?
0.
Just clarify then, so there's been none, 0. I can understand that. That's a pretty clear answer. All right. So I think that's kind of it for me. I think that we've had a little bit of opportunity to discuss this in second reading. I've made clear my concerns. Really, that is that we need more transparency, not less. I think I'm satisfied from the points that the minister has brought forward that this act is really a housekeeping piece, but I will be keeping an eye on it just to make sure that, in fact, it is making sure that we do have full transparency in government and that this isn't providing another level of obfuscation. So I don't think we have any other questions from this side of the House at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions, and I appreciate your concern as an elected official.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is it the pleasure of the committee that Bill number 46, an act to amend the Right to Information and Protection of Privacy Act, stand as presented and that I report the bill as agreed to? All those in favor, please say yea. Yea. Those against, please say nay. In my opinion, the yeas have it, and I declare the motion carried.